Welcome to Gunners R Us podcast, where we are positively Arsenal. I think that's what Joe does. I'm never 100% sure. I feel like, welcome to Gunners R Us, and we're positive. Yeah, that's right. And then I say, and this week we're going to talk about something different because this is an extra podcast. It is a Monday podcast. We will still be getting your Wednesday fix. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, Gunners R Us, on anywhere you get your podcasts. But I thought I'd jump on here because as the weeks get super busy, there's Champions League, the Carabao Cup, there's soon to be FA Cup, but we're playing every 3 days. So instead of this Wednesday doing a Chelsea review, doing a Sevilla review, then previewing Arsenal, Sheffield United, and then whatever we've got midweek next week, plus doing the prediction league and everything that's happening in the Premier League last week and this week, that kind of thing. Instead of jamming it all into about an hour and 10 minutes on Wednesday, I thought if we could get rid of just the Chelsea game while it's still fresh in our minds before the Sevilla game tomorrow, at least we'll have one less thing to talk about. Because to be honest, I've written a little show plan in front of me and I've got 11 talking points. So it's a weird game. It's a weird game to review, really. It was one of the oddest games I've watched in a long time. And I would say it's probably the worst we've played since, potentially there's a Palace game that this game reminded me of. I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 2 years. We lost 3-0 at Selhurst Park. It was pouring rain. I remember Partey displacing a lot of passes that night. But particularly, I remember Conor Gallagher being an absolute nightmare for Arsenal because his pressing was just unreal, just off the charts, basically. And again, that night I had kind of conversations with Joe where I was just saying, I don't understand how you combat what they did, which what Palace did that night was very similar to what Chelsea did this time, which was you have like half a second on the ball ever. So if you imagine three people in a small room and you're throwing a little ball into each other's hands, like just in a circle, and you have to keep doing that for as long as you can. But every time you catch it, someone kind of comes into the back of you and just knocks you off balance a little bit. No, not I don't think necessarily a foul. It's just strong. You're not going to be able to string more than 3 or 4 throws together, and this is exactly what the game was, because all 11 of Chelsea I thought were unbelievable. Maybe the keeper was suspect, so maybe the 10 outfield players were unbelievable. Their pressing from like first minute to last was so good, and I think they being so good made us look very poor. So I don't necessarily think we were just that bad. I think that's a discredit to Chelsea. I think they were just very good, and it made us look very average. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the lineup. The lineup, if you remember, Joe and I were speaking last week on the podcast, and we're so close to having that 11 that we really want, which was, well, we'll get to the Ray Ramsdale situation, but a goalkeeper. And then Zinchenko, Saliba, Gabriel, White, Partey, Rice is the left 8, Odegaard right 8, Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus. We were so close. We were basically a Partey to Jorginho away from that perfect team that we just haven't had in 18 months. Like we just can't seem to put it out. We're very close, but again, Partey didn't even come on, so I don't know if he maybe took a knock in the Ghana games. But again, like I said last week, he was tracking back in the 90th minute in a 4-0 loss to the USA, so never a good sign. And our coach was with him, our physio, so he didn't play any minutes. I'm hoping at Sevilla that he might start just to get some game time because we desperately need him. And you could see the way the game changed when Rice went to the number 6 role again, when Jorginho went off. And I don't think Jorginho was particularly bad. But no, I didn't mind the lineup. It was decent. I thought Chelsea were interesting with Cole Palmer and Gallagher there was no direct centre forward, so it was kind of 2 10s in 2 pockets, which you don't often get. And I think it worked really because they dropped Nicholas Jackson to do this style. And I mean, Cole Palmer is an unbelievable player. I think Chelsea have got a bargain with him because I can't believe City let go of him, to be honest. But he was all over. He's probably their best player, man of the match, I think, on the day. But it was depressing. And again, Jorginho is supposedly press resistant, and you'd think the Spurs game where he got caught short and cost us a win, being not press resistant, would maybe have hindered it. But he's very good. He was very neat and tidy. But I don't think we strung more than like maybe 5 in a row passes at any point. You could never, what we usually would, Ray would put his foot on the ball, or the 2 centre backs, and we kind of walk up the field and look, scan essentially. That never happened because Chelsea gave us no time. So every time you try to string any kind of triangles together, that you were kind of getting someone coming through the back of them. And again, I don't want to say that is like a foul. It was just super good pressing. And you could see it mainly. The easiest way to to visually see it was Saka and Cucurella. Cucurella had Saka sorted all first half, which I don't know was a mixture of Saka maybe not being 100% fit, but he did end up playing 90 minutes. So maybe he is fit. I don't know. But he seemed not fit. But again, I don't know if it's one of those things where they were just pressing so well it made Saka look average, as opposed to Saka being unfit, and that's an excuse because I don't think it was. But the as far as the lineups, I was happy. I would like to have seen Partey, but as the game went on, I think we learned a few things about what we consider our first 11 and that kind of magical 11 that we want to see, even though we still haven't seen it. Maybe it doesn't exist because maybe there's certain players that are interchangeable. And we'll get to that with players like Zinchenko and Trossard. I'd say Vieira, even though he wasn't in the squad because he left the squad early. And even little Smith Rowe cameo, which I thought was unbelievable. So, yes, as far as starting lineups, I was very happy. The first kind of incident of the whole game was, and at the time, I don't think I ever questioned it really because it was a Cole Palmer potential red on Jesus when he was tracking back. Lucas, stop. No, the dog is digging. The dog is digging. But no, Cole Palmer first red. First big incident. At the time, I think I saw it. I thought, well, that's a bit bad, little. But I was like, yeah, it's a yellow. I don't think it was a red. Like, it wasn't until after the game that I kind of looked on Twitter or X, as you would call it, and saw people kind of talking about it. I think the managers talked about it. And I think on Match of the Day they spoke about it and said, maybe not Match of the Day, but a couple of the, Andy Gray. That show, Richard Keys, they do a show. I don't know where it is. They were talking about it and they thought it was a definite red, which I didn't really at the time question it. I was just like, yeah, it's a bad one, but it's a booking, and he got booked, I think. So for me, not a bad decision. I know some people believe that he shouldn't have stayed on the pitch, but if you listen to what the PGMLO MOL, what they have been saying, which is essentially they don't want to disrupt games early on, especially big games, which I don't think is a good. I think a foul's a foul, a red's a red, a goal's a goal, whenever the time of the game is, because that's the point of football is to not do those things early in the game, because otherwise, everyone just be having a fight in the first 10 minutes and go, nah, we don't want to mess up the game. And they said that to do with the Kovacic tackle a few weeks ago against Man City, where they said they didn't want to impact the game negatively. And then if you watch the Everton Liverpool game, they sent off Ashley Young in the first half for two fouls, two yellows, off he goes, and it kind of disrupts the whole game and makes it less of a spectacle. So they flip flop on their decisions, and that is again the issue that everyone's got is the consistency over the actual rules. And I think we'll get to that later with the Sanchez potential penalty that we saw earlier in the year with Wolves, and there was an apology over it and all this kind of thing. And you think there's so little consistency. They're making apologies and they're still not learning from those apologies. So it just seems a bit silly. But as far as the Cole Palmer red, I don't necessarily think it was a red. People are saying it's as bad as the Curtis Jones. I don't think it was. I don't know. I think it's a booking. I think it's whatever. And here comes the penalty, which is probably I say there's so many talking points in this game, but the penalty at the time, I think I had the same thought process that Neville had, which was it's not a penalty, but it is a penalty. And that makes no sense. And again, to add to how hard a decision these refs have, that I can say it's a bad decision, but also a good decision. It shows you how tough it is. But at the same time, that's because we're anyone that says that, who kind of everyone agrees on, is basing it off of what the refs have been doing wrong. I think anyone that watches football could say that is definitely not a penalty. Shouldn't be a penalty. It's both guys go up with their arms out because they're going for a header. It's impossible to jump without your arms. He headers the ball wide for one. It's going, like someone said, the referee decided to change what would have been a goal kick into a goal, which when you say it like that, it just seems so aggressive as far as changing games and the refs not being involved in changing of the games. But he heads it, and from half a yard, it hits his hand. It doesn't change much, just carries on. I think anyone who watches football, any football player would probably say it's not a penalty, no. But based on what they've been giving and what their new rulings are, it is probably a penalty, and because his hands are out in the air and stuff. Whether if the ball come directly in from a throw and it struck his hand and it was out wide, no one would have any complaints. That's definite. It's a definite. But the fact that it's a header from half a yard. He can't do anything about it. And again, based on what different pundits have been saying, I think everyone agrees. It's not a red, but based on what they've been trying to give recently. But you watch the Everton Liverpool game and decide what a handball is for a penalty, and then you watch. I think Man United had a bad one against them against Tottenham this year, where someone blocked it from about 4 yards from the goal, and then from 4 yards from the strike. I think it was Fernandez, maybe Romero, and you think, what? I don't know what is, to be honest. So it is confusing. I don't really have complaints about it because his hand is out there. And to be honest, with the way they played in that first 20 minutes, they deserved a goal. But a penalty is how they got it. Cole Palmer steps up. There was a little issue with him and Sterling, which was interesting to see a veteran like Sterling at a club like that with a brand new City player, youth player, Enzo Fernandez, who's obviously been there a year now or so. And they were saying, no, Cole's got it, it's Cole's. And they're all kind of disagreeing with Sterling. I thought Sterling is your best player and he is the veteran, and they're kind of overruling him. So it was just interesting to see that. But he tucked away. I'm sure I made it higher pressure for him, but he took it away nicely. So that's 1-0. And at that point I thought we were playing so poorly, but the way they were playing, I thought they could probably keep that for 20-25 minutes. I was very wrong. And I thought that tactical decision they had for that game plan, you had to get that goal, otherwise it would have gone very badly, as a la Arsenal in Champions League's gone past, where we'd have like a Bayern Munich come to the Emirates and we're blown away for 20 minutes, not getting the goal, and then lose 5-0. So little drink. Yeah, the game plan went well, and then for the rest of the half, if you actually, it's hard because I've rewatched a lot of highlights, because in the moment I just thought we were so poor. But then when you watch it back, I think we were poor, but it was more kind of wasteful because we were kind of walking through Chelsea. Like Rice got in at one point. I think Jesus got in at one point. Odegaard had a couple of really good opportunities to slide a ball into Jesus, and he just didn't. He was just misplacing the pass. Kind of just very slack. And it was just a bit odd to see because it just seemed so. The Arsenal that we thought had kind of gone was kind of showing, and it was kind of like a little bit unnerving considering how close this was to the 11 that we kind of been waiting for. But it wasn't a good half. I was very disappointed. I thought they were good credit for the 1-0. The XG was showing that they had like 1.2 or something. We had 0.1. It was very much the correct, even though we were walking through and creating nothing, like not actually putting anything away. It didn't show up in XG, but it was 1-0 at half. We made a big decision at halftime to take off Zinchenko, who I thought he is a liability defending. And they were definitely targeting him. So to bring on Tomiyasu, who has been unbelievable in his cameos recently, I thought it was a really good decision. He's starting to get really good at that tucked in role. And again, that kind of shows you what Arteta was probably starting to do with Timber. I think Timber might be there to replace Zinchenko now. I think we can kind of see that. And I think he is trying to phase Zinchenko into a bit part player. And I don't know if that's necessarily because of lack of talent or because he's clearly one of the best passers in the team, if not the best. And he finds those best passes. But since Xhaka's left, he struggled because he's had so many different people ahead of him in the 8 role. He can't seem to pick up any kind of rhythm. And then he is a bit of a liability. So Tomiyasu, who changed the game against City with Havertz, did a little bit here. He kind of gave us a lot of stability. Obviously, we conceded within 3 minutes of the second half, which I think was a bit of a freak goal. There is a debate because apparently Mudryk has said that their goalkeeping coach had said Ray comes forward and off his line to collect crosses. So if you can kind of dink it, you might be able to lob him. Which I could see someone saying that because Gary Neville said in the first half with Ray, he said his starting position's so bad, he's going to get lobbed. He said it, and then it happened. So if Neville had seen it, I'm sure a goalkeeping coach would have seen it. But if you watch the replay, I think he's just looking for Sterling. Because when he actually crosses it, I thought, God, such a good cross because Sterling was free. And I thought this is a goal. Like whether it went directly in, I thought Sterling was going to just head it in if it was kind of on Sterling. So I think it was just a good play. I don't think he meant it at all. But hey, take credit. He did the Bellingham celebration and everything after. But fair play to him. He's probably taken so much online abuse from Arsenal fans since that move. And he's taken a bit of abuse in general just because he hasn't been scoring a lot of goals. But I don't think he meant it. But the other part of this conversation has to be the Raya situation. And I'm mixed. At the time, I thought that is just awful. And I still kind of think that. And my theory on all this, and I'm sure Simon, if he's on Wednesday, would have a comment on this because he is so pro Ramsdale, and I'm pro Ramsdale, but I also very much like Raya. But when you look at the Tottenham game that Raya came into, he made about 2 or 3 odd mistakes. Then he went away at Lens and made a mistake that led to a goal. Then the City game, that first half, we could have been 3-0 down just because of him, because he was giving the ball away in weird positions. And then in this game, the first half, I thought he was whatever. I don't really don't. It was whatever it was. The second half, because of that decision and that getting lobbed, it did fall into the category of just poor. And when you're making like probably close to 10 mistakes in 4 games, Ramsdale probably made 10 big mistakes over 18 months, and he's been dropped. And I understand that, and I like the idea of having 2 goalies that challenge each other. But I think if you're going to have the idea of outfield players, for example, Zinchenko had a bad half. He got taken off at halftime for Tomiyasu. Understandably, he's saying he's going to treat the goalies just like the outfield players. I don't think you can make 10 mistakes in 4 games, because if an outfield player made 1 mistake, you get taken off. You can't make 10 and not lose your spot. And he's been saying that Ramsdale's got to work his spot back. He went and got a clean sheet away at Brentford in the Carabao Cup. He was really good that day. His distribution was better than what, Raya's in for his distribution, nothing else. And the other thing he's in for is collecting crosses. And that is why he has such a high position, which I've seen some coaching, goalkeeper coaches online talking about and saying his position is actually fine. It's just an unfortunate situation. But it's an aggressive position. And they were saying it's very similar to what Seaman's position used to be, because he was very big on collecting crosses. And Raya is in to collect crosses in his distribution. If you're getting lobbed for your positioning, which is the thing your really good attribute, and then 5 minutes later he passes the ball to Cole Palmer right in front of goal, an awful pass. He tries to give it to Declan Rice on the edge of the box under heavy pressure from 2 players. He doesn't even make it to Declan Rice, just straight to the first player. He does well to redeem it. But I mean, that could have been 3 now, would have been the end of the game. You can't, if your things are distribution and collecting the ball, and then within 5 minutes you nearly give away 2 goals for those 2 exact reasons negatively, how can you not lose your place to a world-class keeper like Ramsdale, who should, I think, come back in now, and he should play until he makes big mistakes. And again, eventually one of them is going to become very good, because they're going to not make mistakes because they're nervous of losing their spot, and that will show it. But I think he's in danger of losing a little bit of faith from the players if he doesn't bring Ramsdale in now, because he's got a hard decision now. He's put himself in a hard decision position, because if he doesn't play Raya, you could lose Raya's confidence for good, which isn't as bad as losing Ramsdale's, because Ramsdale's just signed a new deal. He's young, and then Raya slightly older on loan. If we lose his confidence and he doesn't get it back, that's fine. Send him back to Brentford. It's not a problem. Ramsdale, you lose his confidence. You've got a player that you have to try and sell, and then you can end up selling him for a lot less. So I think you bring Ramsdale back in, give him a chance, and I think the fans will be a lot happier. And I think he's proved it, Arteta, since he's been there, that some of the biggest part of all of this turnaround from Arsenal has been like vibes, essentially, like the crowd being on board, people liking the team. I like every player in the team, which hasn't always been the case. Like, you kind of have certain places, oh no, I don't want to see them. And he's brought an atmosphere to the ground. You like, we'll get to the end of the game, but the atmosphere of the away fans, even after that awful performance, but the way in which it ends, plus the way the home fans are in a minute. We got such, like, the commentators keep talking about, it's so loud, and this has all stemmed from doing things that will make people happy. And I think right now bringing Ramsdale back in will definitely uplift the crowd a little bit. It'll uplift the players, because he's obviously liked, and I think the defenders will be less nervous, because Saliba was unbelievable again. Obviously his penalty, which I don't necessarily call it a mistake because it's a bit unfair, but by the end of the game he was just hoofing it, which he doesn't do. And that's got to be because he's scared to go back to the goalie. And that runs through the whole team, that nervousness. But something ran through the Chelsea team, because this is the point where the game kind of changed. I'd say the game changed on the changes. So I don't know what to talk about first. I'm going to talk about Rice. So Rice and the comeback is all kind of a part of each other. I thought Rice was brilliant again. There was a point in I don't know, about 60 minutes, 65 minutes, we had a spell of about 10 minutes where we were just really pushing on again at 2-0. And I thought, if we got a goal now, I think we could scare them a little, because I think they'll get deep and they'd stop doing this press that we just can't break. Like, we couldn't, no one ever had like half a yard to turn or try and even think about what pass they were going to make, and the misplaced passes are caused by that and all that kind of thing. And that's why Chelsea was so good. But what happened was we needed a break, and we had that 10-minute spell, and then it ended, and then there's about a 5-minute spell where I think Nicholas Jackson got in. Rare made a good save on that, like kind of not commit himself. And then shortly after, Sanchez made a big mistake. So in this game, we had I'd say a weird penalty decision, then a goalie mistake, and then another goalie mistake. So it shows you the fine margins in the Premier League. But Rice capitalized on a bad pass from Sanchez, but the finish itself, because how many times, like 9 times out of 10, the guy just balloons it, or he misses the goal, or hits the first man, or he passes it and just doesn't go for it. And I think he was saying afterwards that he watched a Beckham doc on Friday night, and that actually what gave him the confidence to do it, which adds to the idea that he's a funny player in the sense that people find him very cringe. The English Travis Kelce, because only he would say, "Oh, I watched Beckham, and then I bent it like Beckham because I watched the doc, and I manifested it." It's a bit Jake Humphries, isn't it? But I'm there for it because, sorry, another drink. He really pushed the team on. You could see the way in which he was the only one that kind of had any purpose to his passing. He was, confident with his passing. He was whipping it into people's feet. He wasn't misplacing things. Because, for example, I know there's been a conversation about the captaincy, and naturally everyone saw that game and thought, Declan Rice is such a natural captain. He might be the guy. But because Odegaard's kind of gone missing, and I think he had an average game against City. He went missing in the North London derby, and then obviously this game, I think he was really gone missing. Odegaard, I love Odegaard, but he's had a few hard games, and again, this is a situation where I think, and I said it with Havertz, he was struggling, so he got his goal, and then we benched him, and he's made massive contributions since then because the pressure's off. I think with Odegaard, he really takes on the club. Like, he's the one that stays out late, even after wins or losses. He's really embraced it, and it was backed up with him signing a new deal. But I think he takes on a bit too much sometimes. Maybe take the pressure off. For example, away at Sevilla, I know we need to field a strong team because Sevilla are no joke. They really put a performance against Real Madrid. They need to win. We have to win. We can't really go light, but I wonder if someone like Smith Rowe had such a good cameo, potentially played in his position, took that little bit of pressure off of him, would maybe help him, because he has gone missing a little bit. He's going to the habit of shooting a lot, and kind of sometimes where you don't want him to, a bit Bruno Fernandes like. But I'm not anti that because we've had years of people just won't shoot. But as far as the captaincy now, I think Odegaard is our captain. I think Rice does have massive captaincy vibes, but in time, I'm sure he will become the Arsenal captain if he stays. And you can see it by, like, even when he scored, you can see him saying to everyone, like, come on, we can win this. And this was on 77 minutes. So to feel that, I remember watching a semi-final of the Conference Europa Cup last year, and I think West Ham were 1-0 down, and around this kind of time they scored, and I remember Rice in the corner celebrating with all the West Ham players, and you could see him in there saying to them, we can win this. Like, he was really in the moment, like, felt that way. And I remember watching that thinking, I'd love to have a player like that at Arsenal, and luckily we have that exact player at Arsenal. So I do think Rice had another unbelievable performance. He's been man of the match essentially as far as player of the match for Arsenal against Man City this year, Chelsea, and Man United. So big, 2 goals against one Man United, 1 against Chelsea. He's really turning up in the big games. But this was the start of the comeback. And after that, we made some more changes, and we saw Eddie come on, Havertz came on, Smith Rowe came on. I really thought they impacted the game. And I think I don't obviously know tactics as well. And I recognized the press, but I couldn't understand how you actually beat that, or whether it's just one of those things that you got to try and just be composed, even if you can't, if that makes sense. But apparently the best way to do it is to target them. So it's what City did against us last year, is to go over their press directly to a target, let them bring it down, and then let the second balls be won by the midfield. And that's exactly what happened with Havertz. He went in as number 9, and he held the ball up 2 or 3 really so well. And he did the same against City, which led to the goal. He did it again. He held the ball up. He knocked it out wide to Saka, and it was just one of the best crosses of the year, probably, to the back post, where Trossard, who just doesn't get the credit, I think, in world football, really. What an unbelievable player. What a steal. And I know that we got him for 21 million and Mudryk was, 100 million or something. I still think we won that deal, and I'm sure we'll end up with Mudryk at some point, somehow, over some swap. But I do I'm glad we got Trossard because I just think he's an unbelievable player. He scores so many goals for us, important goals. Community Shield being a big one. Um, and he's popped up again, and I just love it. And you see the celebration. Saliba and Saka disappear past the pile straight into the crowd. I think the commentators were saying how loud that way, and it was like chaos. And then seeing Rice kind of stay back after that and just kind of staying with the crowd, you can see, like, you know, people might say it's cringe, but it's what the crowds want to see. He's buying in and enjoying it. And again, he's a professional football player. He gets the fact that how silly and nice his life is essentially. And he's buying in and he's enjoying it. And it's good to see. And what else is good to see is I'm really enjoying Havertz. And I would love to see Havertz start the Sevilla game up front. I would like to see Trossard play potentially, so Martinelli's not overdoing it coming back from injury. I think Saka's going to have to play. If not, you put Jesus out wide maybe, and then bring Saka on, or the opposite way around, and Eddie can come on late on for Havertz. But Eddie had a chance straight after it go 2-2 that he could have won the whole game. Where Thiago Silva, he took it on kind of like an offbeat, and it just went. The goalie didn't even dive. Would have been a wild ending to the game, but I don't think we were worth the 2-2. I think we should have probably dropped points there, or lost. We ended up dropping points, but we lost. But to be unbeaten, having played Chelsea, Tottenham, Man City, and Man United in the first 9 games, to be unbeaten, to be joint top until obviously the enemy play tonight, home to Fulham, and I think this could be their big night where they go top clear. Fantasy football implications, because I don't have Tottenham players in my team, is negative because there's one Elton Prince from SmackDown in my league that has a couple of Tottenham players. Considering he's essentially an Arsenal fan, is wild to me. They could fly up the league, but I know Joe's doing well. So the 2-2, I was as happy as if we won 3-0, because on 75 minutes I was just accepting of the fact that was our worst performance we'll probably have all year. I still think that. I don't think we'll play worse than that all year. I don't know if Chelsea will play as well as that. It reminded me a lot of the Liverpool-Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge at the start of the season, where Chelsea looked really good, but they ended up drawing. And that is kind of unlucky for them. But I said all season, I think they're going to come good. I think they came good in that one. They just turned off a little bit because it's a young squad. There's a lot of players that don't play often, like Cucurella hasn't played much. And he switched off at the Trossard at the back post. I don't think it was Cucurella. He was on Saka. He gave Saka his first half yard of the game essentially, and he punished him. And then Gusto turned off at the back post for Trossard. But 2-2, I will honestly take it. It was the oddest game in the world to review, which I've just tried. So many talking points as far as like red cards, penalties, mishit shots / crosses / goals. A massive comeback that was out of nowhere. I just laughed when it happened. I was just like, I can't believe that we're going to somehow get a point from this game, because we were so poor and they were so good. Last thing to talk about is the Sanchez of it all, which is the penalty before we get out of it. On Jesus, I don't understand how it's not a penalty. Again, the way in which officials have been over the last 5 years, I think we've become confused as fans, because we know what's a penalty and what's not, but we've been confused by how they officiate things, that we start to say things like with the Saliba one, it's not a penalty, but it is. And I think this is the same. Goalies have forever have kind of come out and clattered people and not got the ball, and we've kind of just accepted it. But it's kind of getting worse because it seems that they're, I don't know, being a lot more aggressive with the way in which they do it, and they're missing the ball. So dog is interrupted again. So that was the dog interrupting music that you keep hearing. That's twice in this episode. We were talking about the Sanchez one. Yeah, they're coming out and they're just missing the ball. And again, this happened with Onana for the Wolves game, and they made an apology. And Howard Webb said this will be a penalty going forward because it's unacceptable. You can't just, like anywhere else on the pitch, that's a free kick or a yellow or whatever. Tomiyasu, if you actually watch, Tomiyasu's got his shirt getting pulled off his body. That's why he can't get to it. But he had his over still somehow. But he can't get above it to kind of get it beyond the keeper. And just he comes out for a crowd of people and almost knocks out Jesus. If not, it was knocked out, and the concussion protocol probably should have taken him off. Just an awful tackle, really. Just to think that in this sport, we're at a point where if a guy gets nearly knocked out nowhere near from the ball, that isn't any kind of caution or penalty or anything. But if someone hits a ball from half a yard, that can change the game. They've obviously got some thinking to do, I think, as far as the rules, because they're out of control. But again, I'll take it. It was a weird game, lots of talking points. We didn't deserve it. We got a point. I'll take that. And then tomorrow night we've got Sevilla, and on Wednesday we'll be kind of probably talking about how that went, because it's a big game. Because losing to Lons is definitely made it a massive game, and Sevilla are no joke. They're a good team. We really need to get some kind of result, even if it's a point, because then we go home for 2 games in a row. And hopefully, if we pick up a point, then 6, that'll be 10 points on the whole, out of a potential 15 at that point. And that should get us through, but you never know. It's tough. It's not Europa, and it'll be a real disappointment to go out of the group stages after everything we went through last year. But we'll get to that tomorrow. I'm happy with the 2-2. We'll be back this Wednesday. At the minute, it'll be me and Joe, but there's a chance it'll be Simon, but I know he's extremely busy. And if you haven't seen already, he'll be on Impact's UK tour in Newcastle this week. So he's a busy, busy man. And then after this week, I think he cools off a little bit as far as busyness. So he should be back on the pod. But you can follow him at Simon Miller 360. You can follow us at ByTBA on all forms of social media. We're on Thursday night on Twitch. XOTBA, so make sure you follow us there, where we'll be playing Fortnite and chatting. And we will see you Wednesday. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you download it 1,000 times. Make sure you tell your friends, and keep supporting the podcast. So I hope you enjoyed. Arsenal 2, Chelsea 2. We will see you this Wednesday. Usually, I don't know, Joe does like a thing, right? Let me try and think of something. We were 2-0 down, and then somehow we drew. Is that what he does?